Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for coming out today. We're going to go ahead and call to order our August 16th commission meeting. I'm going to ask Jonathan to lead us in the pledge today.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Joe, you want to lead us in a prayer this morning?
All right, Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the opportunity to serve. And Lord, we ask that you just take this agency and take this commission and give us the wisdom to do what you would have us to do and let us work it the way you would have it done. We ask this in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
All right. Do we have any discussion on the minutes from last month? Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Do we have a motion to approve today's agenda? Do we have any changes, Jeff? I'll make the motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, Mr. Joe, we're gonna turn it over to you.
Okay, let's see if I can get myself lined up here. Okay, as far as employment contracts and contract, what we have, we have Michael Smith is a new hire with law enforcement. Nicholas McDaniel is a new hire with law enforcement. Caleb Vick is a new hire with law enforcement. Melody Christian is a new hire with a CZM grant administrator. Jeffrey Payne is promoted to law enforcement officer team lead lieutenant. Matthew Kasvik is promoted to law enforcement officer team lead lieutenant. Caitlin Payne is promoted to law enforcement officer private 1. She came out of the dispatch there with us. Neva Hostas is promoted to dispatch 2. Ellen Coffin is promoted to environmental material resource specialist team lead. And Jennifer Wilder is promoted to environmental natural resources specialist team lead. And we have a new lawyer on board with us, and that's Mr. Stephen Eckert, and he's with the Attorney General's office. Any questions on the new hires? Promotion. Okay. As far as an agency update, the internship we had started 1 June and ended July the 29th. It was a great deal. I know we have 2 or 3 that have been hired out of it. So that is fantastic. Anytime that we get to hire people out of the internship, it's a fantastic deal. And we've got quite a few people come to us in the agency because of that. Well, I tell you what, if you missed the Neshoba County Fair, you missed a party. You missed a blast. It was wonderful. They was a good time up there. The Mississippi Coast Day was on the 28th, I think it was, and we had about 30 or 35 vendors there. We had the whole area covered in tents, and it was covered up, and everybody in the world was coming by, and they was all getting different things from the Gulf Coast, and people telling them about the Gulf Coast. The sand and clay mixer on Wednesday night, we fed 650 people that came through the line, and then we took I don't know how much to the cabins around us. So it was a fantastic deal. And I tell you what, the seafood was fantastic. The marine resources through the Marine Patrol and other parts of the marine resources cooked that food, and that we've earned them now because they want it forever. So, that's the way it is. I was told one of the leaders from Neshoba said that now we're really worried that the Gulf Coast may take over the Neshoba County Fair. And I told him, I said, well, we're going to take over a day or 2 of it, but but we had a good time. It was a lot of fun and well done. Last Friday, we had MDMR Day. Had a great day. We just took the whole day, and we had a great time, and got a lot of things as far as people in the agency getting to know each other and basically working with each other. And we did some team building. We had Judge Tommy Webb out of Kansas came and spoke to us, and it was a fantastic day. And we really enjoyed that and had a great time. And I appreciate all the people who helped us do that. We got the Gulf of Mexico Fishery Management Council, the 22nd through the 25th in Corpus Christi. So myself and Rick will be there, and we'll be trying to keep our head above water, with Noah and the rest of the group. But so far, we're doing pretty good, and we'll see where we're at, but we'll be in Corpus. If you have a idea that you'd like to give some blood, well, we're going to do it here on the 29th at 9 a.m. And I think it's right here. Is Christy in here? Is it here, Christy? Yeah. And 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's basically being hosted by DMR, but anybody that would like to come can come and give blood. And it's always a great thing to help out the community with that. Let's see. Paperwork. I got something else here. All right. George, come up here. Just come up to the podium there. George Ramsher was, one of you don't know him, he's a coastal resource management specialist, and he came to work with us in 2006 and to 2014, he was in that position, and now he's the director of Office of Coastal Restoration and Resilience from there to 21. George built the largest island we've rebuilt around here. And if you haven't seen Round Island, you need to go look at it. He 3.3 million cubic yards of dredged material, and came out of Pascagoula navigation channels and all. And George was instrumental behind that. And he has worked hard with us. He specializes in hydromagnetic model-based ecosystem planning and restoration. And I can tell you, he's worked with us with Louisiana a lot. He's helped us to do the things in Louisiana to be able to get with CPRA and do and be able to keep a good relationship. I can't say enough for George. I tell you, he's been a great person with us, but George is retiring at the end of this month and going to work with another company. And but I can't blame him. I enjoyed having him, but I just wanted to tell you, George, we appreciate you and thank you so much. And we appreciate you being with us.
Thank you, Joe, so much. And thanks everybody here for, I think you kind of summed it up in your opening prayer, Joe. It's an opportunity to serve, and until you kind of had the chance to do that and feel some effectiveness in that role, it's something pretty unique, and I appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you. We wish you the best. And okay. Well, we're going to be closed on Labor Day, so don't come in here. All right. So we're going to let you know that September the 5th. And also we got the Gulf States Marine Fisheries Commission on October 17th through 19th in San Antonio. We'll be at it. We have the Gulf of Mexico Alliance meeting on October 20th in Gulf Shores. And back to the Gulf Coast, Gulf of Mexico Fishery Management Council meeting October 24th through 27th to be here. And it's at the, I think it's at the Boy Rivage. And so we were able to bring the Gulf Coast here, so maybe y'all can come listen to some of the meetings and be there for that. We had an auction at Lyman, and I tell you what, I didn't know how much equipment we had. We had some stuff up there, and it was everything from fish tanks to all the way down to a battery or two or something. I don't know what was sold. But Patrick, have you got a little update on that?
Well, I can give an update on it really quick. We closed the bids on August the 9th. We tallied everything up yesterday, and beginning today, the winners of those auction items will be updated. And like Director Spraggan said, we had trolling motors, we had engines, we had props, we had all kinds of equipment, boat trailers. And what is huge for the agency is that we've been able to put that stuff in auction, and we took a little bit different approach by things that would have been scrap in the past. They say one man's trash is another man's treasure. And in this opportunity, we've proven that. There's people who wanted some aluminum boat trailers, who wanted some engines. And I believe that, I'm a rounded up somewhere in the neighborhood of $140,000 that'll be coming back to the agency out of that equipment that's being sold.
Appreciate it. And while you're up there, why don't you give us an update on derelict vessels?
Say that one more time.
The derelict vessels.
The derelict vessel program. I tell you, we've been working extremely hard on the derelict vessel program with our legal staff, with Miss Sandy, with Stephen, Roy Lipscomb, Jack Ewing, and Russell have been working really hard on identifying the vessels. And really good news. It's absolutely amazing that beginning July the 1st, when you start contacting people and telling them that they may be penalized for not removing a vessel, they've started moving some of them, and quite a few. I would say somewhere in the neighborhood of 50% of the vessels that we've had on a list for a couple of years, they're gone. And so we're extremely thankful for that. We're continually working on the other vessels that are out there, and going to be very, very soon. In fact, today having a meeting to finalize hopefully the scope of work on what it'll look like on putting out for bid for vendors to go out there and start removing the ones that people have not moved for. So that process is happening. And if y'all hear of any other derelict vessels that are out there, if you go on the website dmr.ms.gov and you go to programs, under programs, you can see derelict vessels right there. You can click on it and fill out a vessel of concern report, and we will get on it immediately. So thank you to everyone who's helped us in that program so far.
Yeah, and it's worked very well. And I think the legislators for passing that and the governor for passing that bill for us, because without it, we didn't have the grounds to do the things that we're able to do now. And before, it had to be either spilling some type of liquid, or it had to be impeding the waterway to us to be able to ask to remove it. And now we can remove anything that's derelict, so or abandoned. Appreciate it, Patrick. All right, we had a thing called SEC squared that was passed by the legislature this last year and the state, and it basically realigned everyone. And it realigned everyone in all the states of all the agencies. And it was questionable how good it was going to be at one time. And but I think it's turned out to be pretty good. We were able to give quite a few raises this year. And so we were able to help and raise some people's salaries and get them back to where they get them close to where they should be. They're not there yet. There's a thing called market, and that's what we're shooting for. And so we're going to try to keep on moving this forward until we get our personnel up to market value, which that's what they should get paid. And it's really worked out great, and we appreciate it. One of the big things it's done is brought our law enforcement up to where now we're competitive with Harrison County and Biloxi and Gulfport and others. And so we can compete now. And so we can start a law enforcement officer out at about the same as they're paying, and that's great. And so that helps us a whole lot, and it helps us to keep our law enforcement officers in there. We appreciate it. You have a thing called charter boat license recreational permits. Rick, come on up for a second. You know, me and you have been working on this, and this is something that's going to come up to Gulf Council, and we need to look at it and decide what we need to do. Basically, Rick, I'll let you give a little synopsis of it since you know it better than I do.
Yeah, so you've been hearing about the FES and the way that MRIP acknowledges effort, and it's I don't want to say antiquated, but it's not an accurate system. That's where the disparity between the numbers that we have in tails and scales and the numbers that MRIP has with their red snapper landings, and that's red snapper is just an example. But the effort is a problem. And so we've been talking with some of the other states, and one of the ways they gauge the effort is through license sales. So as you know, we sell approximately 80,000 saltwater recreational fishing licenses in the state, and there's only 2,000 to 3,000. Is that right, Trevor? 2,000 to 3,000 that are registered tails and scales users. So that percentage, that low percentage, less than 5% or around 5% of our licensed saltwater anglers actually participate in the red snapper fishery. There's a little bit more than that, probably, if you add the people on the boat. But they're surveying all these licensed anglers, and we've discovered they're surveying a lot of unlicensed anglers, and that's going into deriving the effort. So one way to get around that is to do something similar to what Louisiana and Alabama has, is an offshore landing permit. So if you're going to fish for federally managed species, you have to have a specific permit that allows you to do so. There's been some talk of the federal government controlling this, and so you would be, if you're going to fish in federal waters, you need a federal license. The states don't really agree with that. We believe that we can manage that a lot better than the feds can. And so we're going to talk about potentially developing some sort of endorsement or permit to where if you're going to fish out of out of your state and federal waters that you purchase that, and that way the effort can be honed in to just those people fishing federal waters. Because what they're doing is they're taking anybody that's fishing for any species, that's effort, and it's accounted for in for instance red snapper. So that's one reason why our numbers are so inflated with MRIP surveys compared to the tails and scales. So we're going to start looking into that. We've talked to some other states, they're on board. Like I said, Louisiana and Alabama pretty much have it already, but if we could get all the states on board, it would be a step in the right direction.
Now, the biggest thing is we don't need the federal government telling us how to manage our resources. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to do this, and they're trying to come into more of the management of our resources. We know how to manage it. We can manage it as good or better than anybody else. And we need to be able to do that. I think we got enough push. I've talked to other states, and I hope that we will be able to keep that away and keep it under to where we just keep the status quo and let us do our own.
That's right. And just to mention, we're not talking about a license. We're not talking about a whole lot of additional cost. I don't know what it would be. It would be a permit or endorsement? That way the agency could control it. It wouldn't have to go to the legislature. It wouldn't be any major expense to the angler. However, we believe if there was a federal license, it would be probably a substantive cost because they would have to fund the management of those licenses and whatnot.
Trevor, have anything else to add to that? Trevor's our SSC guy, so we got to keep up with him pretty hard,
See essentially how these estimates are calculated and why this is a better approach than what's being done now. Right now they're using an address frame and the license frame to send out mail outs. Anybody who has a recreational license, y'all might have gotten these in the past. Essentially it asks how many days you fished off the boat, how many days you fished off the shore. And once those responses come back, they're partitioned out based on whether they match into the license data frame or not. And for our state, we have unmatching, which attributes them to an unlicensed category. And the unlicensed group is a lot larger than the licensed group. So that inflates our harvest estimates. And then the other thing is that effort is then partitioned into where you fish. So I think, Ronnie, you probably had a lot of MRIP folks come up to you from our group that give surveys and everything else like that. They ask you where you fish, and you state, within 3 miles, outside of 3 miles. That the responses our staff gather on those surveys is how some of that effort is partitioned out. And so when we have a lot of folks who went red snapper fishing, for instance, if we go to West Beach or anything else like that, our proportions of folks fishing out in the EZ go up. So we have a higher effort estimate that comes across. And so this entire thought process is to essentially narrow down that frame of anglers that we're going to be asking how many times they fish, so that we don't have this effect from this large group of unlicensed anglers pushing in on our effort estimate and causing it to inflate. And hopefully what we'll see is that the magnitude will be more in line with what we think it is, and the patterning will match what we think it is, because right now we're not seeing that in MRIP FES.
So basically, in a nutshell, if we sell 80,000 recreational license, they're accounting for each one of those people catching offshore species or red snapper. If we had this permit, then you can narrow it down just to the people that have that permit, right?
To a degree, yes. Essentially what it'll allow us to do is send out specifically targeted surveys to those individuals to ask them how many times they fish. And so the frame, right, the overall universe will be smaller because you'll have the folks who are actually fishing. But it'll also help is partitioning that effort from what's called this unlicensed group or the unmatched group. Essentially, they're licensed anglers that are responding that aren't matching to the licensed data frame. So they're being attributed to this larger group. So hopefully everything we're doing here will kind of narrow all this stuff down so that when we get these responses, it'll be attributed to the license holders, and that will be a little bit more reflective of the magnitude of harvest, because 4 trips each for 10,000 anglers is still a lot less than, it's a lot less than 1 trip for 380,000 unlicensed anglers on the coast. And that's kind of where we're at right now, is figuring that one out.
While you're standing there, why don't you talk about snapper?
All right. So we reopened snapper season on Friday. There's a lot of storms in the area on Friday, so we had limited amount of participation. Picked back up on Saturday and Sunday, and we harvested around 5,000 pounds. A little bit lower effort than what we'd expect, but we have kind of seen lower effort throughout this year because of gas prices and everything else. So we'll just see kind of how it all plays out. I think right now we're sitting at around 60% of the ACL being harvested. So we got a little bit of a ways to go. We'll see what Labor Day and all that brings as far as pressure. These gas prices go down, I think we'll have a lot more folks starting to get out on the water.
Trevor, I've got a question for you and Joe as well, I guess. So I got a phone call, a text message last night, phone call this morning, and the question posed to me was, why do we not do a projected closure date for the end of the season like we do the first part of the season? And where he was going with that is a charter boat captain. He's looking at, he's got clients saying, hey, can we red snapper fish in middle of October? Is it still going to be open? And he doesn't have anything to give.
I got you. So yeah, I mean, the tough part of projecting out a closure date is that we might not be able to foresee the effort shifts that occur over time. For instance, if you'd asked me this question in 2019, we just said, well, that's probably something we can look into and try to project out a closure date. But then 2020 happened and our effort skyrocketed. So if we would establish a closure date, it'll close half of the time. And then we have what's happening this year compared to 2021. So the 2021 season kind of extended out a little bit longer. And, at the beginning of the year, we never could have predicted that. We wouldn't have seen it coming. And then this year, with gas prices and everything else, it's really hard to go out to a definitive date. And we projected in the past and we ran projections and then, tested to see where we always ended up. And there's been times where we closed on a weekend because we thought that we'd be going over and end up a storm popped up over the weekend, tanked effort, and then we had to reopen. So it's just a difficult fishery to establish a closure date for because it's so dynamic, and we can try to provide rough dates to that degree, but there's probably a high probability that we'll either close earlier than that or we'll have to close on the established closure date and reopen at a later date. And that's just something we try to avoid because that just adds in more.
Can we pretty much say though, because of where we're sitting today at 60% and we're in the middle of August, that can we feel comfortable to go through the end of October?
Yeah, well, I'm fairly positive we'll be up to the end of October.
We could tell them the end of October, we feel comfortable with good with that. That makes sense.
I think that'll
and what we
give
try
them
to
a
do
good
is when
idea.
we see it coming, we try to let folks know as quickly as we can without, we don't want to give them 3 days before the season closes. We try to project it out as far as we can so we can let folks know, but sometimes it's just not possible.
Let them prepare. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. One other thing that, we're going to talk about, and I've talked to the council about it last time I talked to Noah. I would like for Mississippi to move in the direction of coming out from under MREP with Noah. I would like for Mississippi to move in that direction to follow Louisiana and Texas and to be independent. It's going to mean that the legislature is going to have to allow us to spend some money, to do it and maybe allocate a little bit for us, but it's not that much. We're talking around 600 grand a year or something in that neighborhood to be able to do it. I think we can definitely do that. We can manage our resource better. This way we can have our opening. We will still do surveys. We'll still do the things that need to be done. That's how we'll manage it, but we'll do it under our surveys and not under theirs. And I like that a whole lot better. I've told Noah they're not happy with me. I've told him that. I think if you saw the letter that Senator Wicker sent out, he wasn't happy either, and neither was a lot of the other senators on the Gulf. And I think that they explained to him that MREP is not working. I tried to explain that to him last time at the Gulf Council, and at their system is broken. It needs to be fixed, and they don't want to fix it. I mean, whenever you take the state of Mississippi and you take 5 days in a 2-year period and jeopardize us with 3 months each for fishing every day, catching the limit, and with 1,400 boats, and we fished for 5 days in the 2 days and probably didn't have 400 boats in the 5 days. So, I mean, it's amazing. And They just will not look at it. They will not. Trevor, come on, you know it all this better than I do, so.
Joe, I got a quick question too on that. If we took that into our own hands, would that only include the 3 miles past the barrier islands and in
It includes 9 miles.
9 miles?
And then
we
plus
do
we
it.
would also do the Gulf, the reef fish.
If we landed in a port in Mississippi, private or public, regardless, and we went, could we go past that 9 miles and still, if we were doing our own?
It would not, so doing this would not allow for us to oversee or supersede any federal rules or regulations that were out there. But what it would do is that we would still calculate for the harvest estimates for each area that's being fished beyond 9 miles, within 9 miles, everything else like that. And I will say, you know, to the director's point, we've been working within the transition group, which is the group that was assigned by the council to work through some of the stuff. We've provided comments multiple times. We've given presentations, and we're still working with them week by week to try to figure out exactly what's going on within Mississippi. There's a research plan coming up to look at some of these things, and we're going to be doing some research with tails and scales too, to try to make it as, you know, even better than it is now. But I will state, you know, as a state, we've been in constant contact with them for the last couple months since this transition group started. We've provided our hypotheses, what we think are happening, and try to throw out ways to fix these things. And some of them within the licensed data frame, and that's what we're working on now. And getting that in a timely manner and transferring it over. Some of it is figuring out low use surveys, like, you know, Ron, you're probably familiar with the area, but you know, if I send a surveyor out to Gulfport Lake in the middle of the winter, they might get some surveys, they might not. And there's a lot of sites that are like that, where I can send someone out for 6 hours and they get 2 surveys, and it might not contribute as a whole, and it might lead us into this small sample size scenario that we're running into. So we're throwing everything we can out there, and trying to work with them the best we can to improve it. And it's leading down the road of what the director just said is, you know, at some point, we're going to have to decide what's best for our state and what's best for our anglers as far as continuing to provide them access. And that's kind of where we're at right now.
That was something couldn't wrap my head around. Last time we talked about all this was the sampling sites and when they were there. You know, a lot of those seemed like they aligned in times when people just weren't going to be fishing out of those areas.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we've talked about a fair amount with them, and it's actually gaining traction on the East Coast as well. They're asking the same questions, and some of that comes down to the design of making sure you have coverage across not only high use sites but the low sites, because you don't want something to be happening at a low use site that's completely different from what the fishery's observing anywhere else. And our argument has been, you know, for sites like Gulfport Lake and up in the rivers and everything else, most of those folks are one dimensional. They're doing one thing. And we're pretty confident to say that the patterns we're observing at one probably cover the rest of them as well. And we can take some of those surveys and partition them to the medium use and high use sites, so we can increase the number of surveys, not have this sample size problem that we're having. So we're exploring every avenue we can as a state. And, you know, it's leading us into some tough decisions at the moment.
Keep up
Trevor's
the good
doing a
work.
great job with us on the SSC and fighting for us, but, you know, they're still holding hard, and Trevor will tell you, they're still holding hard, and they're saying that they're gonna cut 2/3 of the state of Mississippi's allocation if they get their way with it. And, there is no way that science, and there's no way you can take best available science and say that it fits. If he could, we would be okay. If it was true, we'd be all right. I don't think there's a single soul in this Department of Marine Resources that would not support something if we thought we was overfishing it. But we're not, and that 150,000 pounds is about right for Mississippi. It works good. We've seen that. I mean, you know, plus or minus a little bit wouldn't hurt, okay? Either way, but we don't need to get very much off of that. And if you know, and we've tried to get them. I mean, just to throw those 2 months, those 2 months out to 2 years would have brought us back almost in line to what they were looking at. And that's just, I mean, but they just can't understand that they're going to take their data and they're going to use their data. And Trevor knows it a lot better than I do, but it is not correct, and they just know where it works.
Yep. And I mean, the argument we're having is exactly that, trying to at least throw out some of the low use waves that are causing some of these large effects, and then looking into all the waves to see when we're seeing what's causing the spikes that we're seeing. And right now it's that partitioning of effort across the board and where that effort is coming from.
And we're sitting here at, 60% right now. Alabama's about what, 40%, 35, 40%. And it's all because a lot of it is due to the pure fact of cost of fuel and everything else and what it is. And it's not just so much the cost of fuel, it's the cost of people coming down to go to the beaches anymore because they can't afford to pay $2,500 for 4 days on the beach and go fishing too. So, a lot of that is costing, a lot of things have gone crazy. And so we'll see what happens there. Louisiana's kind of holding their own, going up. I don't know about Texas, never hear from them. I don't know about Florida because you don't hear from them, but
And Louisiana did raise their bag limit, which
yeah, they raised it to 3.
That did push a
And,
lot.
but they did that last year.
Yep.
And so they felt they had to do that to keep their quota where they was at. But okay, it's going good. I mean, common sense, we understand.
Yep.
But when you start trying to skew it one way or the other, and it's so far skewed, as I told them the other day, in statistics, when I don't know, it's been a long time since I've been in college, but Trevor, you've been there since I have, and I think it's still the same though. The variable on just about anything's 4%. As in statistics, if you look at it, the variable around 4%. Well, we're inside 4%. We're at 3.55%. And how do they even worry about the inside the variable? And to try to tell us that that's going to right the ship to take out the smallest thing is not going to do it. Righting the ship, taking out the smallest is not going to do it. If they're going to right the ship, take out Florida, take out Alabama, part of that. I mean, I'm not against them, but it just, if you're going to right the ship, take it out from where it's at, right? If you're saying we overfished when they got 2 million pounds and we got 155,000, come on.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this stems from what y'all can view as standardized treatment or equal treatment across the board. And the thing we kind of pointed out is even if you had the most standardized and rigorous program across the board with all these statistics like MRIP does, I mean, it's a huge program. It covers us, East Coast, Hawaii, across the board. But just because it's a standardized, implemented federal program does not mean it lacks biases. And where we see those biases occurs in smaller states. So that's our kind of what we're dealing with right now.
Thank you, Trevor. I hate to take up so much of your time today, but I felt y'all need to know these things. Because these are things that are coming up at the Gulf Council and y'all need to know what's happening with that also. All right, that pretty much completes the agency update. USDA processes grants, Tracy, real quick. Okay, so we are getting some people in and it's working. Good deal. All right, Rick, any update on the Bonnie Carey?
So unlike most months, I do have an update. We received some comments from OMB. They're nothing substantive. We're currently addressing them. We're almost done with it. I should get that back to them this week, but mainly it's just questions of how are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? Which is pretty much addressed in the spend plan, but we're having to readdress it. And that's just been the theme here the past few years. So, but OMB has reviewed it. They've sent us comments. So we're still moving in a positive trajectory. So that's a good thing. And hopefully this will be the last round, but I can't.
So
promise.
it is at OMB.
Yes. The comments that we're sending back will go to OMB.
Okay, because I'm gonna have lunch with Senator Wicker, be the key speaker today for lunch. So I want to talk to him about
Yeah,
it.
when I received now Noah's the middleman. Noah sent it to me and said, these are comments from OMB. So hopefully these are the last comments from OMB and we can proceed after that, but I can't control that though.
It seems to take forever to get anything done. All right, last thing is action items update, Sandy.
At the July meeting, the commission recommended and the director approved 2 of the 4 no wake zones that were requested from the Jackson County Board of Supervisors in the old Fort Bayou waterway, and they tabled the other. And the director approved those as well. And the commission elected Ronnie Daniels as the chair and Cam Roberts as the vice chair. And that's it.
Okay, any questions, anyone? Sir, that's our update from the agency.
Thank you, Director. Do any of our commissioners have anything to report today?
I got a quick one, Ronnie.
All right.
We did a group of guys this year. We had our second annual buoy fish tournament. It's basically a tag and release triple tail tournament. So some of that funding comes from this department for the triple tail program to the Gulf Coast Research Lab. And so I just wanted to say, those funds were put to good use 2 weekends ago. We tagged almost 30 triple tail in one day. So it's a great tournament, and just wanted everybody to know that money's going to good use. So.
Man, that's great. The tagging reports that come back on those are so interesting. And one of the things that I learned whenever I was doing it is how fast they grow. Those fish grow at an unbelievable rate. All right. Chief, Office Marine Patrol. Oh, Chief's not here today. Deputy Chief.
Good morning, everyone. July was a pretty busy month. The numbers kind of speak for themselves. Y'all have your report. Just quickly off the top, we had 2,668 stops in July. That's plus 1,000 from this time last year. And 141 citations versus 56 this time last year. So if there's anything of particular interest to anybody, I'll attempt to answer any questions.
I believe so. Keep up the good work.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
And might I remind everybody, Mississippi is still the highest in the Gulf on intercepts for snapper.
All right, Coastal Resources Management, Greg.
There we go. Okay, this is a permit request by the city of Biloxi. It involves the rebuilding of the Lighthouse Pier there at the intersection of Porter and Highway 90. It's in the general use district, and the agent is Seymour Engineering. So the majority of this project is the reconstruction of a pier. You can see 345 by 8 initially, then there'll be a covered pier section, and then another couple open pier sections with a T at the end. Another portion of this project comprises a jetty. And this is not your typical jetty like you think of that protects harbors or boat channels or anything like that. This jetty is basically more functioning for resiliency and access to the water. Most of y'all are pretty familiar with the coast and how you see areas that have been there for years, like Moses Pier, the jetty that leads to Moses Pier, the jetty that leads to Uri Pier, jetties that lead to Courthouse, Washington Avenue, and Bay St. Louis, etc. So this is an opportunity for them to put this structure there to allow more access. The sand beach doesn't allow a lot of access to people who are handicapped or providing in scooters or things like that. So you have this jetty, they'll have a sidewalk on top of it. It'll allow that access for those folks, as well as we do know in the past that jetties have also been a good fishing area as well. Anytime you have a chance to put some structure out there, you do get an attractant. So also another portion of the project, final part is the dredging for the project for the access barges. This will be temporary. The material will be side cast to the side and then will be placed back when the work is complete. And they have requested a variance for the fill with the jetty, associated with the jetty. This is not the greatest drawing in the world, but you can see anyway, the jetty will be approximately 120 feet over the sand beach and then another 240 feet out into the open water areas. Then the piers will extend from the end of the jetty. Now, one thing that we commonly get associated with jetties, especially on the front, like this is, you have a buildup because the way the currents work, you have a buildup of sand on the east end, and you have the area to the west of the jetty that gets starred with sediment. Well, in this case, Harrison County, who administers the sand beach, has written in a letter when they submit the permit application that they are okay with this. They understand that that could be a consequence of the project. So they are on board knowing that this could occur. Let's go to the next one. I'm having trouble advancing. Okay, here's just some pictures of how it is currently. You do see that the beach has eroded substantially. Has been past permits in place to re-nourish the beach. Okay, then we have just a view off looking out toward the west. So this project was placed in the Sun Herald and on the DMR website. We received no comments. We also had a public hearing to justify the variance request. And we had no comments for that as well. DEQ is reviewing the project. Archives and History had no objections, nor did Wildlife, Fisheries and Parks. And the Secretary of State has said that the area is already under an existing tidelands lease. So in this case, the staff recommends that the project serves a higher public purpose by providing a more resilient structures. The jetty will provide attachment sites to provide secondary productivity and provide refuge for marine organisms. So the staff requests a motion that the commission recommend to the executive director the approval of the variance and the permit.
All right, we got any questions? All right, if we don't have any questions, do we have a motion to approve the staff's recommendation?
I'll make a motion.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, looks like we're gonna have Ms. Brewer up for finance and administration.
Good morning, everyone. Leslie Brewer, CFO. I'll be presenting the financials for the month ending July 31st, 2022. At the end of the month, our state and our agency revenue was $3 million. Our state net income was 2.8 and our agency was 2.4. And then after a month, both of our budgets are at 99.5%. Anyone have any questions?
I'm glad you're in charge of all those numbers, and not me. Thank you. All right, Ms. Charmaine.
Good morning. The Mississippi Department of Marine Resources was mentioned 11 times in local, state, and national media since the July MACMR meeting. News items included red snapper season reopening, the red snapper project with GCRL, and the Seafood Processors Pandemic Response and Safety Block Grant. Seafood Technology hosted a basic seafood HACCP training with 10 registrants. The training was held July 27th through the 29th in the Bolton Building. MDMR staff participated at One Coast Day at the Neshoba County Fair. On July 27th, we fed Gulf Fresh Mississippi seafood to an estimated 800 guests. We also promoted the Mississippi Seafood Program with a booth featuring promotional materials the morning of July 28th. Many agencies and organizations from the Gulf Coast attended One Coast Day to promote everything our coast has to offer. Mississippi Seafood also attended the Great American Seafood Cook-Off in New Orleans on August 6th. Cooper Miller with Forklift and Tupelo represented Mississippi after winning the Mississippi Seafood Cook-Off in May. He competed against chefs from 13 states. And Chef Cooper did an amazing job with his dish, but Massachusetts took home the win.
All right, thank you. We're gonna have a public comment. You wanna wait till the end, Mr. Ramsey? All right. We will put that to the side. These are always my favorite. So now we're gonna get to marine fisheries, and we got some new records.
Yeah, we got a couple of youth records this month. So the first was the youth conventional record. And these are both from Mr. Rhodey Arms, brought them in a couple weeks ago. First one's a leatherjack. It's a new record of 2.4 ounces. There's a picture of the fish. Picture of Rhodey with the fish. And he also had a youth fly record for a ladyfish, Elopsaurus. And that was 2 pounds, 7.68 ounces. There's a picture of the fish, and there's a picture of Rhodey with the fish, and he's really learning that long arm technique really well. So we just need a motion to recommend the adoption of new state records.
That young man must have a whole wall full of pictures at his house.
He's getting close.
I'll be happy to make the motion. Do we have a second? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All right, do we have any other business? All right, Mr. Ramsey, now you're up.
Good morning. In the past, I went to the Gulf Coast Research Laboratory seminar, and at this seminar, I was introduced to Gulfport robotics students. And the students approached me and inquired how they could help me. And so what we've done is we've developed a robotic lifting system to accommodate disabled people from the pier onto the boat, back onto the pier. They went and got an MIT grant, and I was recognized for this introduction. So what I'm trying to introduce is an opportunity. I seen the Army Corps of Engineers developed a pier on Deer Island in 2015. It was introduced for accessibility. Well, what does that do for disabled community? Amenities for loved ones and caretakers. The caretakers right now, they have blown up balloon tires they utilize in the University of Southern Mississippi, and it's difficult to go through the sand. And visitor centers has one they introduced, and difficult to go through the sand. So the hunting industry uses track wheelchairs in the woods. So why don't we bring the track wheelchairs to the islands to enjoy nature? 606 Outdoor Stewardship Program and Master Naturalist Program, Eric Sparks. So I'm trying to make sure it's implemented appropriately with our capabilities in our community, including Heritage Trails Partnership. It's called Mr. Ryan Vega Veterans Government Innovation System, VA Innovation. And what it includes is he has a greenhouse initiative they're doing, collaboration to initiate economic development, health purposes for our loved ones and caretakers, for our brothers and sisters in the armed forces. And I'm here to help you to represent this appropriately. And I will be representing at City Hall at 1:30 to introduce it, and with Mississippi Development Authority initiation. I'm coming forth with this appropriately. And with our bottled water company, we're a veteran bottled water company launched out of Collins, Mississippi. He's retired Army Ranger. We're donating houses, caskets, dormitory with the proceeds. I'm doing vending machines with Mississippi Department of Rehabilitation Services to accommodate workforce development, economic development opportunities for these ladies and gentlemen that's not capable of doing appropriate positions. I've seen the position this young lady carried in his canteen y'all had out in the lobby, or the gentleman, I'd say, in his disabled Mississippi Department of Rehabilitation Service from the blind department. And I've seen all this. I want to purchase 80 acres north of Ocean Springs, develop organic garden, feed the homeless, horseback riding for the blind and everything. I'm coming forth for enhancement recreation opportunities. Paraplegic fishing tournaments. I was representing this approach before the pandemic, Miss Jamie Miller. And I introduced all 3 counties before the pandemic. But now I'm coming back out of the woods because I'm focused. Because I'm on the right medication now. I'm not sporadically speaking anymore. You know?
We
Because
appreciate that, Mr. Ramsey.
I just want to help y'all understand this. I'm with y'all. Thank you very much for your assistance and guidance.
Thank you. All right, if we don't have any other comments, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Everybody have a good day.